Fire and weather officials are now warning of extreme fire danger in Los Angeles County. The National Weather Service has issued its most severe red flag warning through Wednesday afternoon. They're urging residents to avoid any and all actions that could cause a spark. Wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour are threatening to undo any progress in containing the area's 3 ongoing fires. And California's liberal leaders are facing ruthless scrutiny over the state's preparedness for a wildfire outbreak of this magnitude. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany, here with my co-host Emily Campagno and Harris Faulkner. Also joining us, Rachel Campos-Stuffy, Fox & Friends weekend co-host and Fox Noticias anchor, and Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor and former Utah congressman. We begin here, the Los Angeles County Sheriff warning potential looters to stay out of the evacuation zone. He says multiple arrests have been made.
I want to talk about arrest for the LA County Sheriff's area. Overnight, we had several other arrests. It brings it up to a total of 34 in our geographic area. We have 30 in the Eaton fire area, and we have 4 in the Palisades area. Last night, specifically, again, for LA County Sheriff's jurisdiction, we arrested 4. 2 were for curfew violations. 2 were arrested for 1 drone incident. Not all of them are for burglary or looting or for curfew violations. But it is very important when I say stay out, we are arresting people who are not supposed to be there, who do not live there, who are in possession of narcotics. We've arrested several with guns.
Let's go to Jonathan Hunt. He's live in the Pacific Palisades with more from the ground. Jonathan.
Hey, Kayleigh, we are in something of a calm before the next windstorm here in the Pacific Palisades right now. The entire region of LA and beyond is under a red flag warning. But what the National Weather Service calls the particularly dangerous situation will start in the early hours of Tuesday morning. And that, of course, is the same warnings we were under last Tuesday. And we know all too well now what kind of damage the flames that were fanned by those winds caused. As you look all around you here in the Pacific Palisades, there is pretty much nothing to see but this kind of heartbreaking destruction right across a huge swath of what was very much an idyllic neighborhood here in LA. Hundreds of people have lost so much, Kayleigh, but it's often the individual stories that touch you the most. Last week, at the very end of last week, Friday, a woman reached out to me, said, my 99-year-old grandmother lives in the Palisades. We got her out. We had known nothing about her home. Any chance you can check on it? Well, I couldn't get there Friday evening, but my friend and colleague Griff Jenkins made it over the weekend and shot this video that he sent to me. I then had the grim task of sending this to the family of that 99-year-old grandmother and showing them that her house had been completely and utterly destroyed. That poor woman who the family has asked us not to name her because they don't want her overwhelmed with texts and messages, but she had lived in the Palisades in that house since 1967 is when she bought it. Extraordinary to think of the amount of memories she had there and the amount of loss she is now going through. And that, of course, is a story that is repeated over and over again right across the Palisades. As you look down this street, there really is nothing left, Kayleigh. And then there are a couple of houses here and there you find that don't have any damage at all. And that is what the looters are now targeting. As Brian pans around to the left here, through the tree there, you can see one of those homes that is undamaged. Obviously, people fled that home as fast as they could. They've left all their possessions there. And that is the kind of home that these evil looters are now targeting, trying to get in under any pretense that they can to this neighborhood, get through the police roadblocks, the National Guard roadblocks, and come in and take from those people. I think a lot of people in LA will have been very happy to hear the words of Sheriff Luna and indeed the DA Nathan Hochman, who said, we will find you, we will arrest you, we will prosecute you and punish you to the full extent of the law. But for so many people here in the Palisades, in Malibu, just to the south of me here, and in Altadena, which was the site of a terrible firestorm too, thousands of people are going to have a very long road ahead of them, Kaylee. It is hard to see, and I know the Palisades very well. My daughter goes to school here, as a lot of our viewers know. It's hard to see how this comes back certainly not in months. Probably it's going to take years. The high school, by the way, that my daughter goes to is already looking for. They sent out an urgent notice to everybody yesterday asking for anybody who has any idea of a temporary premises, obviously well outside the Palisades, that they could set up school in, because at the moment they're back to remote learning. And if they are asking to completely relocate that school, clearly they don't believe they're going to be open, I would imagine, for this semester. So we have a lot of kids, 3,000 kids at Palisades Charter High School who look like they're back to remote learning for quite some time. Just another trauma on top of all the other trauma, Kaylee.
Such devastation. A 99-year-old woman, you said that she moved there in 1967. That's almost 6 decades in that area, and now just devastation. Jonathan, keep us updated. Thank you.
Sure.
You know, Jason, I want to play a soundbite. You know, Gavin Newsom's on the ground. He's trying to manage this along with local leaders, but he keeps going back to a word that many Democrats use in times of crisis. Watch this.
The other thing is, look, you know, I think you're getting a bad rap. I know you're getting a bad rap about these fire hydrants don't have enough water in them. Give me a break. Give me a break.
So we intended to play on that soundbite, and if you play on, what you hear is Gavin Newsom, who says over and over again that he's combating misinformation. He said that to President Biden. Now, Jason, President Biden, in the wake of Hurricane Helene and Milton, I watched the press conference, said misinformation, misinformation. President Biden was asked by Susan Page in his exit interview, what's your big regret? And he said failure to combat misinformation. Why is it that misinformation continues to be the scapegoat?
Well, it's the only thing he's got is, I mean, this is the same Gavin Newsom, right, who said, I'm literally on the phone with the president right now, only to find out that that was a big lie. So you're just lining up lie after lie after lie. And by the way, and you know this better than anybody, if they were seriously having communication with the senior officials there in Los Angeles, they would have been in the Situation Room. They wouldn't have been in this made-for-television event, you know, in the Oval Office so that you could hear Gavin Newsom talking about this. Look, I'm glad to hear the tough talk about how they're going to get after the people that are looting and do that type of thing. Some of us think they should have taken that hard line before the fire, but I'm glad they're doing it. But I also want to see them communicating and helping ICE. If they want to have this type of tough talk, they need to make sure that those detainers from ICE are honored. And this is already an issue. They're trying to implement more of their sanctuary city policies, and that is not going to help the situation.
And Gavin Newsom, when he was initially asked about the fire hydrants, pointed to local officials. That's what he told Anderson Cooper. Well, let's hear from one of those local officials. This is Kristen Crowley, the fire chief.
Yes, we took a $17 million budget cut. And as we know, any budget cut would negatively impact our ability to carry out our mission. The $17 million budget cut and the elimination of our civilian positions like our mechanics did and has and will continue to severely impact our ability to repair our apparatus. I have, over the last 3 years, been clear that the fire department needs help. We can no longer sustain where we are. We do not have enough firefighters. With that, I have also requested multiple budgets, interim budgets, to show how understaffed, under-resourced, and underfunded the LEFD is.
So there's been this huge dust up. So that's the fire chief. But then Karen Bass, the mayor, has said in response to that, that's not accurate, that they've been backgrounding to reporters, I presume it's Karen Bass's team, that the budget actually increased just after the fiscal year and actually increased by 7%. So that's measuring just within one fiscal year. So there's this dust up. There was also confusion as to whether she was fired or not. But I want to point out the Wall Street Journal, Alyssa Finley, I think this gets to the heart of it. Los Angeles spent $350 million this year on firefighter pensions and benefits. Much of that would have been better spent on fire prevention, which made up only 5% of the department's budget. She goes on to get to maybe something both are missing.
Look, one thing that I've watched is with every news conference, Karen Bass gets farther and farther down the list of guests. They happen every day at 11 a.m., so I'm always paying attention to who goes first. She's not going first. Today, I think she was fourth. They're not looking to her to fight the fires right now. They're not looking to her to do much of anything. There is something going on in the background there, and we can't focus on that. I don't want to focus on that, but when the time comes, Lots of questions about the money, where it went, how it went, so on and so forth. I do want to get back to that point of misinformation, though. Anything that Democrats are doing, and I caution Gavin Newsom, I'm sure he's not going to take my advice. Anything that man in the Oval Office is saying right now, you should not be repeating as a Democrat. You can't win with misinformation in the time of a crisis. That's not going to help you win. If you use Biden's talking points, they'll take you off the ticket, too. I mean, that's just basic math. So I don't really listen to much he has to say because I know it's all political and I know people are hurting and he actually is not helping. And I was wrong last week. The restaurant that he sneaked out to during the COVID restriction lockdowns that he put into place wasn't 2 stars. It was a 3-star Michelin. His priorities, not mine. I don't know if they're yours.
Yeah, and so you have a lot of finger pointing, Emily. You have, the fire chief pointing at Karen Bass, Gavin Newsom pointing to local officials for answers. But then you have Jen Psaki saying, let's look at Elon Musk. Let's look at Donald Trump. Watch this.
Fact is, leaders will need to confront a very complicated and challenging reality moving forward. But right now, that is not exactly what is happening. Instead, Donald Trump and his allies are injecting half-truths, misinformation, and flat-out lies in some cases in order to score a version of political points, I suppose. We saw something similar play out just this past October in the aftermath of Hurricanes Helene and Milton, when Trump repeatedly lied about FEMA spending disaster relief funds on migrants, which didn't happen. Those lies were then spread and amplified by the richest man in the world on the social media site that he owns. And so now we're back in this vicious cycle.
I guess it's Trump and Elon.
Yeah, and I'll say that the vicious cycle that I see is this administration continuing to be obsessed with the upcoming, recurring president and the good things he has done for society. Look, I want to focus on something. She talks about the complex situation. So let's dive into what that looked like in the state of California. I want to focus for a second on those budgets. So it is not so black and white as to say that budget cuts led to these fires, because the reality is, in the fall, city officials approved a larger contract for the firefighters. And to your point earlier, so $350 million goes to firefighters' pensions and salaries, well-deserved, of course, benefits, but only 5% to prevention. And when you couple that with the mayor and the fire chief saying their top priority, quote unquote, is diversity, equity, and inclusion, when you couple that with 9 of those positions being DEI directors, you start to realize where the priorities lay. So while it's fine to have these guys taken care of course, the reality is you are ignoring, indeed, the complex situation. Crime factors in, too, as we learned in that WSJ article. For example, the 4th largest fire in California state history was started by a recidivist felon who was out on parole for a DUI. 20 of the 21 fires started there in Los Angeles are started in homeless camps per day. So why are we sort of hearing that things are so black and white to blame Trump for everything when the reality is those smelt protections, no, it's not about the regulations that he deregulated. It's about the environment, the loss of employment, so much that were fleshed out to the Pacific because of these protections that go so much more beyond just a black and white situation that Dems can point to.
And you point to a lot of problems in L.A. Rachel, someone else who's pointing to problems in L.A. is Maria Shriver. I was really intrigued to see this.
What did she
L.A.
say?
cannot go forward with the status quo. L.A. is no longer what it was. It has to be different. It has to prioritize the safety of its citizen, police, fire, schools. L.A. residents deserve better. And she goes on. Wow.
I think it's because people who live in LA know LA will never be the same again. And this idea of turning, first of all, it's interesting to see them all turning on each other. This is what they're doing. And now the new one is we're going to turn and we're going to blame Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It's not going to work this time, because their friends who amplify their liberal deflection messages just had their houses burned down. They're mad as heck. They're pissed off. So it's not working. I didn't see this one from Maria Shriver, but there's a lot of them. And this isn't just an indictment on these leaders and their incompetence. This is an indictment on liberal policies, environmental policies, and we need to talk about that because they are behind this, whether it's the smelt or the environmental groups that are the donors that are funding these campaigns that are basically suing anyone who tries to do the right thing in terms of fire prevention.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize is with environmental law, 49 states follow federal guidelines, and California has a carve-out where they can create their own environmental regulations. So think about that.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.